All right, and I think I've got it set up so I can see your screen, I can see you, I can see me, um, and so let's kind of
And
walk
then you can
through.
see the chat GPT.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah. So start over with your kind of your question about Liz.
Sure. Okay. All right. So, Preston, I want you to tell me exactly what AI is, and you're not going to have to pretend that hard, but pretend like I don't know any AI.
That's fair. That's fair. Um, okay. So when we think about artificial intelligence or AI, what this technology is, it's really just kind of the next evolution of a technology that's been around for a really long time, and that's called neural nets. Neural nets, for those of you who are not familiar, would be basically just the way to take and encode the information stored, for example, in text or in in binary or any sort of information or data, encoding that within a what we call a vector database. Actually, we should back up because this is actually slightly inaccurate. Um, so when we think about AI or artificial intelligence, what this really is just the next evolution of a technology that's really been around for a while. And it's bringing together a couple different pieces to bear within that. The first one is probably the most important and kind of the biggest step change in terms of what we're able to do with AI. And that comes down to how we are encoding and storing this data. And so, what's happening at the end of the day is somewhere out there, these different models have been trained on tons and tons of information. This information, it could be pulled from the internet, it could be pulled from videos, it could be pulled from people just uploading things and then having them get encoded and parsed. And what that means is basically you take a text, some sort of piece of information or data. The computers store that as ones and zeros for now. Quantum computing, you can store it as probabilities. So, anyways, that's down the road. Give it 5 months, and then we'll be quantum computing with AI. But ones and zeros, those get stored basically and encoded. So the word Bible gets encoded and stored as a certain number within this vector database. And then the biggest thing that ties all this stuff together is relationships. It's all about how is one word related to another word. And so, for example, the word Bible seems to always show up with the word David or the word Jesus or the word God or the word Christianity. And so there's a relationship there. And so what happens is these models get trained to understand how those words and in their mind just how these bits of information are encoded and related to each other. And what that gets, what we call those is the weights and biases. That's basically the weights and biases of how these different parts of the system or parts of the information database that it's looking over, how those are related to each other. And so what happens then, just to get back to the actual question here, is once we have that, what happens there is when you ask a question, it goes through and basically says, hey, you asked a question about, hey, give me recommendations for a pizzeria in Chicago. It's going to say, all right, I see Chicago, I see pizza, I see recommendations. I know what these words mean historically from my knowledge, from my vast scope of models, what we call it, that I've been trained on. I recognize that those words are generally related to each other like this. And so what happens when it's responding is it's generating the next word or the next token. Token can be a syllable or a piece of a sentence, but basically generating one token by one token after each other, saying, hey, what's the probability of after the word hi? What's the next most likely scenario of word that should be said after that? And so you string that together and you get these responses and string that together into really powerful tools like ChatGPT or Tapos that can basically take the information it's been encoded with and use that to provide responses, essentially just highlighting how are these things related on a numerical level.
So my understanding is there's several different high-powered AIs. So like you, what now? Whenever you search on Google, you see Gemini already giving you a rundown of essentially what it's scraped from the internet based on your question. You have ChatGPT. If you're an X or Twitter user, you have Grok. Uh, what what are the differences between those? Are they all scraping the internet the exact same way? What's why do we have different AI?
Yep, that's an interesting question, and there's some kind of ethical or questions around. There's questions, I guess, and a little bit of ambiguity around some of the
Okay.
scraping functionality there. At the risk of not getting sued by some of these different companies, I won't go into too much detail on that, but I will say what we know in terms of the way that some of these AIs are getting trained is pretty opaque. Likely, it is there's evidence to suggest that they pretty much scraped as much of the entire internet as they can, including like YouTube videos and content that's out there. There's some copyright laws that some of them are facing right now in terms of kind of what that looks like. But at the end of the day, it's pretty opaque, and so it's hard for me to give an answer one way or the other. When you think about the differences between the models, though, um, it comes down to those weights and biases. And so you can tweak those models to improve the results. So you see every time there's a new version, 4.0 Mini comes out, you got O coming out, you got Gemini Pro 2 or Gemini Pro 2 Flash or something like that that came out very recently. I mean, these new models, what's happening is they're training their model, and then they're seeing how it responds to a series of different tests. How well do you answer questions about law? How well do you do basic math? How well do you reason? How well do you process complex tasks? How well do you respond in a human sounding way? And so as it's going through and testing those, there's a bunch of different benchmarks out there where you can see, hey, how do these models stack up on these different benchmarks? And what they do is they go back and they train it with a little bit more data. They also adjust those weights and biases and say, hey, you thought this was really related to this. It's not as related. And I'm way overgeneralizing here. The actual technical
Sure.
details of how they do this is frankly beyond me. I'm not an expert in actually training models by any means. But they basically go through and tweak those relationships, those weights and biases. And some models out there actually expose those weights and biases openly to the internet, so you can see, hey, here's our weights and biases that we're doing. And so there's a big push towards transparency within that space, and some of these models do that, some of them don't, for understandable
So
reasons from a business standpoint. But
are you able to are they able, based on the weights and biases, able to weigh one way or the other? So like what I guess what I mean by that is how objective actually is AI? Or like how much weight in subjectivity based on who's handling the weights and biases
mm-hmm.
is there?
I do think there is definitely potential for that. From just thinking from a technical standpoint, there's definitely potential to
Which is
adjust.
like transparency,
Yeah,
not influence.
exactly. Yeah. So and a portion of it is based on how well is it trained. Now you've with all of them, you've got prompt engineering that you can inject as you're using this, but that puts the onus on the user to basically know, hey, how do I need to ask and frame my question of this technology in order to get a response back that aligns with maybe my core beliefs. That is one way of doing it, where you just kind of put the onus on the user to, hey, if you wanted to respond with a Christian worldview, you got to be really explicit about what that means and how that works. Um, the
What's
other
the other one?
flip side of the picture is you you use something called a RAG. So what RAG is basically you're putting a content layer on top of the underlying base model. So you have the base model that knows how to speak English and Spanish and Swahili and knows what a haiku is, and has access to kind of the breadth of knowledge that base model has been trained on. And so it's almost like choosing.
It's like going to grade school. Like you know the general things about life
Sure,
or
yeah.
like information,
I
right?
would say it's almost more so than that. I would say maybe a better example is like a bowl of ice cream. It's your vanilla
Okay.
bowl of ice cream. It has all the sweetness and flavors. It is ice cream. You can interact with it and utilize it like ice cream. But the rag layer on top of that is where you can come through and inject it and say, hey, I want this to be chocolate ice cream, so I'm going to inject it
Yeah.
with a whole bunch of fudge, or I want this to be M&Ms or what, whatever it is, and you can basically
So
put that
this
content layer on top of that, and now it fundamentally changes. And then it's still ice cream on a base level. It is still ice cream, but changes the flavor of it.
this is not for the recording. This is actually just for me.
Yep.
Is it kind of like going to college and getting like the your basics, like where you're, I forget what it's called, before you choose your major?
Yep.
You know how you get your
Mm-hmm.
education? When you go choose a major, you start changing your actual class
Yep.
purposes.
Yeah. Basically, it's almost.
I like the ice cream.
Thank you. Yeah, the flavor thing I think makes sense. But the another way to think of it is you've got, I mean, the content. So say like a church's content, for example. Um, you could basically feed it all that church's content, and it's going to amplify that content. Maybe that's content that like the model may have had access to that content, but that content is diluted within the pool of the entirety of the information that it has access to. Putting that vector database of a specific set of content on the forefront basically says it makes it so, hey, this is the primary content we're going to choose from, and I still have access to the base vanilla that was trained on the entirety of the information it had access to, but it amplifies and modifies the responses in such a way that they align and first and foremost seek the information from that content that you feed it.
Okay, so if I was to ask a basic question to ChatGPT,
Yep.
When you and I went to Chicago, I did it quick. I didn't want to Google, so I just said, "Hey, Chicago's a really deep dish pizza. Take me to a great pizza place."
Yep.
With it, the 4 airports that I was at.
Yeah, quite the adventure.
Yeah. And I told them where our Airbnb was. He said, "Hey, pick a place along this route." That's essentially the vanilla ice cream. Like that's just we're not asking it to have a biblical worldview. We're just saying, hey, pick a.
Yeah, you have raw information in your relationships that you've learned about. You know how pizza and relationship and this address potentially relate to each other. They have some other tools. I mean, to be fair, one of the other differences too between the different offerings of AIs out there is they wrap in some of these other functionalities and tools. So like Gemini wraps in Google Maps really natively. ChatGPT has a bunch of other like kind of code writing tools and functionalities built into it. And so basically they've taken their base product and then built all these different feature sets on top of it to utilize and harness it in different ways to solve things like what you're doing out here. And that's one of the big differences too, is just the different feature sets that you get with utilizing these different. Honestly, it's these different companies. It's not necessarily their model under the hood. The model under the hood is mainly just the weights and biases that are different, but these different functions that have been built on top of the generative AI foundation that are powerful.
It makes sense for Gemini to be so close to Google Maps. Obviously, they've spent years collecting all that data. It seems like we see AI everywhere now.
Mm-hmm.
Most kids in high school and college are using it daily. More and more people I talk to are starting to use it to automate things, to help write unfortunate emails. Actually, if you look at my previous 30 days, my son told me an underwear joke and I needed a response. So
yeah, Slipknot, Christian Marriage Insights. This is some personal stuff here, man.
Yeah. I was comparing Tapos to ChatGPT actually.
Oh yeah. Comparing those flavors. Yeah.
So rapid growth.
Yep.
I mean, we have the statistic.
Yeah, projected 36%. Yeah, rapid growth over the year over year. in the
Yeah.
market, just from an investment standpoint. I
And
mean, the
could
industry's
you imagine
huge.
investing in that?
Yeah, I think it, I mean, I think it's going to be even more so than that. Honestly, I mean, it's just such a fundamental shift in the
Well, it's
way
like
that we
this.
operate.
The graph is like this.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
it's
a linear. It's kind of
yeah. There's very pointed times, and a very few number of them throughout human history, that there's been some sort of step change. Basically, you think about all the different ages of human history. Each one of them is bookended by a certain technological advancement. And so, like, you think about, fire being the very first one that completely
changed
upended,
everything.
and just, step change in the Homo sapien kind of trajectory there. Next one being agricultural revolution. That one was a little more gradual,
Yeah.
but the invention of agriculture and the technologies that go around that, step change there. Industrial revolution, scientific revolution, and then we are currently undergoing. We are in that scientific revolution, but there's something that, and people smarter than myself have probably labeled this, but there is a step change here that we are facing with data. Basically entering the information age, and tools like this are really the underlying catalyst behind that explosion of what we're going to see. And so it's really to be determined what that looks like.
It seems like we entered into the information age uh, when the internet became a
Yeah.
huge thing. And now it's almost like I don't even know what they're called.
Yeah, we may be like a.
We're taking all that information.
It's almost like the
Taking it.
post information age,
Yeah.
which sounds more dramatic than I think I intended. But I mean, I think you're right. I mean, the information age kind of started with the internet. That was the technological catalyst there, and we've just
And now
seen the
we're streaming
explosion of
content.
content that we're
Yeah.
overwhelmed with, just drowning in content and information and data, and it's just not parsable or understandable. And so, I mean, we made. I think AI, honestly, it probably it merits its own age, in the sense of like, hey, we're entering the artificial intelligence age, where and it's the natural,
Well,
like,
kind of
if
like
you think about it, it's just the natural follow through. These technologies, just it's
exactly.
fire to agriculture to industrial, like it's just internet, data and information to AI. I mean, I I'm fascinated, and what's crazy is that intervals between those are shortening so significantly. I mean, we've got what, 30 years, um, since like the start of the internet. When was this? Is very ignorant sounding.
Y2K. Is
What?
that
Yeah,
was
like,
it Y2K basically?
yeah. I mean, but I feel like probably 30 years is a recent rough time
That
frame
is
there.
that's
Early
30
'90s
years.
really kind of kicking off
Yep.
the explosion of the internet. Um, and so, I mean, how long is the AI age going to be? 10 years before we get to the next, major step change. The quantum age
I
could,
just
frankly, could be that.
I just remember well quantum age. I mean, talking about the time shortening between each one, it's like we have the technology age, which is the internet, and we have the intelligence age, which is only going to last, I feel like, 5 years before the quantum age. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I think we're probably 10 years out from major. I mean, there's major breakthroughs almost every day, in
Sure.
quantum computing. It's not usable yet by any means
Yeah.
for like the
It
consumer. I mean, you have to keep it at literally, a fraction above absolute zero to be functional. And so, there's some
I
superconductors and technology that need to be fully developed out first. But no, I agree. I think we're maybe a decade out
I just
from.
remember I remember having to unplug my home phone to plug into my Xbox to be able to play online.
Yep.
And then you pick up the home phone, and all you would hear is like,
Yeah.
and now here we are streaming.
Yep.
Um, all right, so rapid growth in AI. Uh, I mean, super fast advancement. It's being adopted everywhere you go. How does that fit in with the church? And um, yeah, I mean, where do you see the church being able to use this? Is the church going to be, I mean, no pun intended, for the Left Behind series? Yeah, so what
Well, I may actually flip this back on you as a pastor, before we dive into kind of different ways that the church can
I
use
was just going
AI.
to correct whatever you set up. Say, well, as the
Yeah,
pastor, I was
that's
going
that sounds
to.
about right. Yeah, yeah, that jives. Um, I might flip that back to you just before we get into ways the church can use AI. Let's take a look back at kind of the history of the church and its relationship with technology, and kind of explore where we've come from and what we can maybe learn from that as we face this new potential age.
Yeah. So I am going to be completely transparent. I'm not a big fan of live streaming churches, and people think that I'm going to be left behind with that technology also. Um, and so I'm not one to quickly jump on new trends with churches. It's just not. I really value in-person relational how I have. And so it is strange for me to be jumping on AI so quickly for the church. Normally, I'm one of the last adopters. If I don't see,
You're an old soul.
I'm, um, but there is historically. I mean, the church has always been like an adopted new technology. It's just I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I think we're scared to take something God has given us, like the gospel, and to influence or change it in any way. And all of these are just tools,
Mm-hmm.
and it's helping to advance the gospel beyond anything that we could have ever done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I read about Jesus coming during the time that he did and how specific he was when he was born and died, the time in history for the Roman empires have conquered the known world, build roads to from Rome across like Jerusalem, like all these places, Samaria, the trip to Spain, stuff like that. The fact that he came then so that the gospel could use the technology of this road, um, so that Paul could actually go out on missionary journeys and do what God called them to do. Um, so, I mean, one of the examples, and there's two that I think are just clear as day. The first one is the printing press. Early church didn't want to adopt it because they were scared that the Word of God, the Bible, would be changed and printed in mass quantities that we have of the Bible right now. Luckily, as we continue to discover more and more manuscripts, and I think we're at 25,000, 32,000, something like that, original I think we're at a 99.97% accuracy rate.
Wow.
That's what I last. And I think if you're like me, it's like, well, hold on, what's the 0.03? It's I don't know if that
It's not.
changes.
It's not important. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Anyways, and so they were worried about that because it's a good concern to have. And I would say that it's the same for AI. Know where the pitfalls are, but stay like don't fall into the pitfalls. We've seen what the printing press has done for the Bible, and it completely changed. We've gone from Catholic churches saying that only the priest and the pope are qualified to read the Bible and to interpret it for you, to having the Bible be the number one book in the world that you can go and have a relationship with God by yourself. And when I say by yourself, I mean you could have a personal relationship with God that forces you back into community with other Christians. Don't I? The second was just radio. Early 20th century, again, church was concerned about sermons and preachers being on the radio and being taken out of context. Great concern to have, obviously. Great concern. But we've seen what evangelists like Billy Graham have been able to do using the radio. How many more people were saved by the gospel in any part of the world that if and if you have a radio signal, you can hear who Jesus is. I mean, it's amazing. It's the exact same thing with the internet um, and churches being. I mean, if you think of the way they used to build churches to be a part of the town square, like in a physical location, or there's a church on every mall, so to speak.
Yep.
Really, it's you're doing the exact same, just online.
Yep.
It's how much you can be a part of the online community that you're surrounded by. And so I think AI is just the next iteration of that. It's um, kids are using it. Why not give like centered AI that they can engage with, where truth is actually important to them, and be trusted, not just like if it was asked who Jesus is. As a parent, would you want that source to be pulled from a fake website? You know, like like, hey, God is. I don't even want to get into saying it.
No, it's that whole question of like, I mean, you've got the vast ocean of internet. You know, where do I want my kid getting advice from? Do I want it from the pool there, or do I want to, yeah, maybe have access to that there? Don't be ignorant of that, but I want to highlight. Here's truth. Here is godly centric wisdom. Seek your wisdom here. And this is all pointing back to Scripture. This is everything, pointing everything towards Scripture and towards the wisdom of the church. So no, I agree. I think that it can be a tool, and it's just like anything. It's a tool that can be used for good or bad. It's just a matter about how you wield it.
I will say it should only be viewed as a tool.
Yes.
And yes, there's dangers that come with it. I mean, there's what are they called? Televangelists, who I just completely disagree with, who I think abuse the word of God and they use it to profit. I mean, there are pitfalls with every piece of tool that we're ever going to use. So I think the church is, within the next 6 months, they're going to be at a crossroads of, are we going to adopt this and use it to spread the gospel, or are we going to let this fall behind? And I keep coming back to using kids as an example. When I say kids, I mean high school, college age students.
Babies, basically,
yeah.
Just isolated half the cancer.
Yeah, it is. Every pastor should be high level concerned with how much information is at their fingertips. High level concern of going, man, we got to fight for they're hearing stuff online using the internet. We have to be reasoning and fighting what they're reading. It's just
yeah, that's part. I mean, it's what does discipleship look like in the information age? It's part of that discipleship means shepherding your flock. A good shepherd make sure you don't walk straight through the pack of wolves. Let's guide yourself around a little bit. Let's be aware that there are wolves out there. Let's know what a wolf is, but it doesn't mean that we're going to go ask the wolf directions to the next town type of thing.
The common misconceptions.
The metaphor was a little hairy, huh?
I think for that metaphor, I would do if I was to use the shepherd sheep metaphor, it's we're in a field. Like all of us are in this field of the information. And the grass is kind of brown and gross, and it's the shepherd's job to lead us to the fresh grass.
Yeah.
We're not just ingesting crap. We're not just ingesting foods. But the shepherd is going, guys, there's fresh grass over here. Come eat.
Yeah. Or hey, there's a whole bunch of grass over here that looks really, really good. It looks lush and sugary and sweet and easy to consume, but it's full of pesticides. And so it looks good, but it's going to kill you. And so the shepherd's job to know that and to help guide. Yeah, no, I like that. That grass metaphor is good.
Um, okay, so
Have you thought about being a pastor?
yeah, yeah. Um, one of the biggest things that I am constantly fighting against, and it's how quickly should I talk about Tapos?
Um, in just general conversations, you're thinking, or
Like right now,
oh,
because as I learn AI these human roles in ministry, that's actually not my biggest concern.
mm-hmm.
My biggest concern is AI will replace the Holy Spirit.
Yeah,
Uh, and so, like, that's the big thing on why I think that this is so different than every other church AI.
sure.
Well, like, and I'm not saying other churches AIs are trying to replace the Holy Spirit, but can AI be used to better your sermon? Sure. Um, I personally don't use it for that. So I don't. This is where I'm having like, how do I say this gently, but also going, guys, AI should not be writing your sermon.
I think everyone knows that intuitively. I don't think there's anyone out there who's like, yeah, I want a digital pastor where I get a fresh sermon to my liking
Yeah,
in my
yeah,
tone of voice every week or every day. I don't think anyone actually thinks that. Um, or if they do, they wouldn't say it out loud.
yeah.
But it's the I think the biggest concern that I hear is it's just like a steady slide into like, oh, all the research is now done for me. Cool, and I can infer from it and outline it from there. But hey, I could also have it give me an outline, and so it's just like the steady slide into mediocrity,
Yeah.
or and I don't even know if it's mediocrity,
That's
just steady slide into laziness or apathy.
yeah.
Um,
But I would say that's mediocrity.
sure, yeah, yeah.
I think that's a mediocre.
I guess I'm defending AI in terms of the quality of the actual outline it comes
Sure.
up
Oh, sure.
with. But, tech bro over here always going to defend technology. Um, but the conceptually and ethically, that slide into mediocrity, absolutely. And I think that's kind of the concern. It's like it's just a steady
Yeah.
slide. It's really easy to do and easy just to kind of utilize it more and more and more and more. And I agree. I mean, my heart and my
I agree
passion
too.
for AI, I think it goes for both of us here, is not on that side of the picture. It's not on the content generation side. It is on the amplification of that Holy Spirit inspired wisdom on the backside of it. And I think that's where Tapos really comes in, really shines. Is
I agree.
the goal is to amplify and empower the congregation with the information, the flood of really, really good, high quality content. There's a lot of trash out there, don't get me wrong. But also, just think about it in the church. There's so much rich, godly, inspired wisdom that if I lived 100 lifetimes, would not have the ability to consume all that and learn from that in a meaningful way, much less remember it all in a moment of need or even just in a daily devo type of thing. And so, yeah, I think
So
that's where the real power is.
for the staff person, AI. I mean, one of the common misconceptions: AI will replace human roles in ministry. What from experience, here's what I've realized. AI cuts down on the time of administration work, and just, I mean, instead of me having to go to 6 different sites to ask a question so that I can get a full picture, it is reducing the amount of time I need searching for answers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, now I still, me and God still parse through each of those pieces of content and go, okay, God, what is it trying to convey, right? And so it's actually reducing the time where I'm not talking to people.
Mm-hmm. Or talking directly to
Because,
God. I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
And so what this is actually doing is it's almost bringing uh, the human relationship back into focus
Mm-hmm.
because we're not doing
Yeah.
research.
Pastors are no longer that they don't have to just be research monkeys.
Correct. We're not
You're
stuck
more
in
than a
our
grad student now. You're a disciple
exactly,
maker.
exactly.
Yeah.
you're not stuck in your study poring over text and books and neglecting to sit in a common space and go have an actual interaction with somebody.
Yep.
Uh, it's not replacing human roles. It's actually allowing us to do the human part
Mm-hmm.
of our ministry. Um, the second is a common misconception: AI adoption contradicts traditional. Uh, I I don't even know where to begin to address this because it's like it. The only one that I could see potentially about traditional church values is meeting in person.
Sure.
Is not being together. Um, we're going through this at my church right now, and it is this is more about culture than it is about AI.
Mm-hmm.
If you're sure that you guys meet together, you're not going to run into this issue. If you develop a culture of I don't know, how do I like online presence is good enough. That's the culture that you're going to have at your church. Is that? Am I contradicting what we're trying to say at this point?
No, I don't think so. And the reason why is because I think there's a, I think there's your approach to ministry with being discipleship, human interactions, that being the focal point. Um, well, frankly, it reminds me of Jesus. Uh, shocking as that is, I know, knowing you.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's crazy.
for anyone watching, we've been friends for a
Well,
long time. This is not
I like
just
I
some
like
randoms.
how you went from, dude. Have you ever thought about being a pastor? To, dude, you kind of look like Jesus. I'm shocked.
Those don't always go together. Um, the no the your approach to ministry there of the human interaction being the front and center, the focal point there. Um, that's I think where churches need to head. And if you look at the church, I mean the numbers in attendance are just abysmal. I mean just steadily declining, and a big driver
There
for
is a
that.
tick in Gen Z.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
But there's also I mean, Gen Z is also by far the most engaged online and the most
yeah.
engaged with technology. And so,
There's actually I just saw there's a tick in millennialism or in millennials after they got married and have kids. It's like at age 35 we go, oh man,
oh man,
values are good.
parenting kids. Oh my,
Yeah,
I'm a
I
terrible
need
human
help.
being. I need some help here.
Why am I
Yep.
yelling at my 3 month old?
Yeah. Uh, sad but true.
I've been there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that idea of getting back into the relationship. That's what we all crave. It's funny that relationship is such an integral piece of this conversation, both on the technical side of like, hey, how does AI even work? AI works by
Yep.
relationships, numerical relationships, yes, different, but it's all relationships all the way down.
Person,
Uh,
please don't look at me as a numerical value unless it's a 10.
wait, what did you say?
So please don't look at me as a numerical value only unless it's a 10.
10 out of 100, but I mean, definitely a 10.
Yeah.
Um, The no, it's only ones and zeros. Sorry, very binary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but I put those together.
That was good. That was good. I hate to admit it when you have a good dad joke, but that's a pretty decent one. But I mean, I think that's back to the point. I mean, that's the only way to kind of reverse that trend is leaning into the relationship side of it. And so,
Yeah.
where AI can be used to foster more meaningful conversations and interactions on the human level is really where it's going to shine, and frankly, where you and I's passion is and what we're trying to do here. But
What would you consider a traditional church value? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
conservatism, I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
Just trying to put a non-church hat on. I mean, traditional church value, yeah, conservatism, kind
Right.
of tradition.
Okay. And do you think AI is going to stop like like tradition in churches. Like that's what
No,
I'm.
no, I don't. I agree. Yeah, I don't see it as a
Yeah,
major concern here. I mean, think about like the liturgy or the church calendar or something like that.
yeah.
I mean, for me to
And
be
we
able to do
gather
a quick
together.
deep dive on, hey, what does it mean? Or hey, I'm about to meet with
Sure.
some friends. We're playing pickleball, but like, hey, what's today in the church calendar? And is there a way that I can casually bring this up in a way that
Yeah,
doesn't sound forced, or at least just equip
sure.
myself going in? I'm like, hey, our pastor a couple of years ago did a sermon series on this, I think. What was it about? And what are some key takeaways from that I can apply to going to play pickleball? Um, and so just being able to harness that wisdom of the church in the back pocket as we go out and into the world and make disciples, as well as be discipled um, by the wisdom of the church, both in person and via technology. So,
Yeah, it's I really like speaking with the other witnesses when I see them standing on the corner of the streets. And it took a long time to be able to have the confidence and the knowledge to go speak with them.
mm-hmm.
But I don't just go guns blazing and going, well, no, look at this and this and this and this and this.
You're
It's
wrong.
okay. All of that is I use when I'm speaking with them, and God goes, now bring up this verse
Mm-hmm.
or show them this. And now it's even. I mean, I used to have to go search through my Google Doc notes for to help my
Yeah.
show them, and now it it's not that I'm preparing less; it's just more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's
Yeah. It's productivity gains. I mean, it's productivity gains, and it's not
it's,
replacing the human; it's just making that human more productive. That's what every piece of technology has done
uh,
um, since
until
fire.
until the robot comes out.
Well,
What is Elon Musk thing? The
uh,
Tesla robot.
yeah,
I don't know. It's,
that is replacing the
I'm
human.
probably
Sorry.
gonna get.
um,
In fact,
but
we should probably ask the AI how to preach the gospel to the Tesla robot.
that'd be interesting. Yeah, pull up Tapos. Let's ask it. Yeah.
Just say 10010.
Activation code accepted. Salvation accepted.
Um, because, yeah, I think you and I mentioned this. The biggest, it's just that slippery slide.
Mm-hmm.
This to laziness, property. Um, this is actually supposed to make you more efficient and better, and we should be going this way.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go down this way.
Yep.
This is just amplifying what you already do.
Yep.
Um, let's see. The church in the information age challenges and discipleship. Um, we mentioned this earlier in our conversation. In the information age, it's just information overload. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose. And so, what do we do? I mean, congregations have access to the entire internet. They have access to anything that you can go and just search. You're going to get. I don't know. There are moments where it's just overwhelming. With it's true. Okay, but what's actually true?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess how does Tapos help with that?
So I mean, it's I like your grass metaphor a lot, where there's all this grass out there, and how do the congregation shepherd their flock to the grass that's not the one that looks good with has pesticides, and not the one that's dry and crusted, but the one that's actually good for their soul. And that's where I think that whole RAG model, to get all technical again, I mean, that RAG model is what we built Tapos to do, basically, where basically the church uploads their content and any content that they trust, and then they can equip their congregation with a tool that they can come ask and seek wisdom from that content. And so it's got the content of that church that it filters and funnels all those requests through, so that the wisdom that it espouses on the back end of that is not the generalized vanilla, responses. It is the flavor responses that aligns to that church's values and is drawn from the wisdom of that church, and also points back to those specific pieces of content or sermons or PDFs or podcast or any piece of content that the church chooses to provide to its congregation. And also allows them to generate resources from that. So, hey, I'm asking a question about patience and parenting. Great, the information's cool, and yeah, I'm not gonna, the sermon's here, and I can read the transcript or listen to it, but I don't have time to do that. I just need a guided prayer in the moment here, just to give me a 2-minute guided prayer that I can just pray over myself with this wisdom. And so that's the way that one of the many ways that the church can equip the congregation with that wisdom to help shepherd their flock to the good grass.
So I'm running a test here.
Yep.
At Tapos, who is Jesus. And I want to run this.
Well, to clarify, you're asking ChatGPT. You're not asking Tapos.
Wait.
That Tapos, this is just a technical thing for you, Nick. That Tapos GPT is just all it has is like, what is Tapos? It's just used for like writing marketing copy and stuff like that. It's not tapped into Tapos in any way.
I thought it is to have the parameters of Jesus is God, Trinitarian Catholicism. Is that not true?
That Tapos thing I shared with you there, no, it has no parameters like that. It is not related at all. It is you should probably rename that, or I should rename that to Tapos marketing. Is all it is. It's just the information about what Tapos is, and used to like, hey, I use it like in all those messages I sent out yesterday. I would copy the message and say, hey, improve this for me.
Got it.
And it'll craft the response because it knows the features and the pricing model and stuff like that.
I think I lost all of my chat.
You can it'll be there. You can if you refresh, it'll probably show up there.
I don't know how to read.
Anyways, I don't know if we need to necessarily go into the third section. I think we have a lot of good content here from the first two. Watch it not record the audio after all that. But yeah, I'll maybe give this to Carly and see. I mean, I think this is a good exercise for us to do in preparation for tomorrow. I think we kind of refined what works, what doesn't work, different metaphors and stuff that they can utilize tomorrow as we're thinking through it. So yeah, I think this was the prep that we really need to do.
I think so.
I'll take the transcript of this and create an outline from it that I can send over to Brian. Say, hey, here's some kind of the thoughts. Here's the different ways that we'd approached kind of interviewing each other in preparation for this. So feel free to use it or not, but either way, excited to chat through with this you tomorrow.
Nope. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Your screen share went away though.
Yeah, I think so.
Gotcha. All right, I'm gonna stop our recording though.